Welcome, everybody, to another episode of me answering your frequently asked questions or hitting topics that we think are important and you think that are important to be covered. So today is something that is very, very special to me and my team. And it is the rules of paranormal investigating. Now, these are our rules. These are Odyssey Paranormal Society's rules. And it's taken me many, many years to try and narrow it down to things that I believe will keep the team safe and professional and respectful in any places that we go. So these, obviously not all teams have rules, or they do, they're kind of unspoken. Like, we don't do that. Or, that sort of thing. I think it's very important to have them written down so people can just see them and they can know, and there's no gray area. There's no misinterpretation. There's not going to be any miscommunication if they're written down. You don't have to agree with these. Maybe you do some of this stuff. But I'm going to go over ours and kind of why they are important. Rule number 1. Do not investigate alone. Now, obviously, I think a lot of people do this. Not investigate alone, but don't investigate alone. Obviously, it's a huge safety issue. I have heard stories of lone people breaking into what they believe to be abandoned houses, and they're termite infested. The floorboards are loose. They fall through the floor. They break their leg. They can't get out. They're not found for a day or two. It's just safe. It's just safety in this one. Not to mention, it's another living person to back up any experience you might have. It's if you hear a voice, it's hard without stopping everything and going back to bouncing it off somebody they heard it too. And maybe they heard something you didn't. So, it's just a collaboration. It's a partner thing. The other thing is, if something does happen to you, maybe it's not falling through a floor or anything like that, but maybe you feel dizzy, disoriented, which we all know can happen. They're there to bring you out. You do see a lot of people on shows now that do solo investigating, solo EVP sessions. But the thing you have to realize is unless your Ghost Adventures being dumbasses, the cameraman is there. So it's not, even though they're doing the session by themselves, they are not actually alone. And that was always something that got me originally was that, until I heard that. I was like, duh, of course. So just, especially for safety issues, do not investigate alone. Rule number 2. Never investigate your own home or location that you have emotional ties to. And the reason for that being is again, your own personal safety. When you have an emotional attachment to it, you are more vulnerable. If you are trying to investigate it because you believe there is something negative in your home, or there is something that's trying to hurt you, or anything like that, and let's just say for the sake of argument that you're right, it will use that tie to this place. It will use that emotional connection against you. And so we'll be able to further manipulate you and really do some really terrible things to you. Also, it's also an ownership thing. You have say what goes on in your house. So if you are unintentionally asking a spirit to do something, especially if it's a negative spirit, you've just given it pretty much the keys to your house. And it's going to be very, very hard to take that away from you, or take that away from them, I should say. If all you, I've had clients, and it's never worked out, where they have not listened to me and they have done their own investigating. They have turned on recorders and put them like down in the basement and said, please talk to me, or talked into this recorder. If you have something to say, blah, blah, blah. Like, you've just given it permission to go ahead and interact with you and in your house. I don't think, at least in my opinion, in my experience, if you just put a recorder down that's on and then leave, you don't say anything, you don't do anything, you just set it down and off you go, I don't think bad things can happen to there. So if you're going to do something like that, I would recommend you don't invite it to do anything. You just set it down and allow it to capture. The other reason why I say this, for people who are going to leave that area, like let's say you're going to put it down a recorder to record overnight. A lot of times I get I get audio from clients who are like, listen to this, I'm hearing so-and-so say something, I can't believe it, that hates me and wants me out of here. I listen to it and I hear absolutely nothing. Like, there's just nothing there. People hear, especially when it's your own home, they hear what they want to hear. There was a time where, back when I first started, this team didn't exist at that time. We, for the longest time, thought we had an EVP of a spirit saying, you're a dead man. Only to come to find out, later, realizing that no, it wasn't an EVP at all. It was movement that the recorder was picking up. And we had matrixed it to say that, because that was the kind of case that was. Like, that was an actual, it wasn't demonic, but it was a negative case. The spirit did not have good intentions. So, with clients especially not being trained, not having the experience, they're going to hear what they want to hear. They're going to matrix something that isn't a spirit at all. And then they're going to blow their own minds. And they're going to continue down this path of thinking whatever it is they think is in their house, that is what is there, even though they're completely wrong. So leave your home to the professionals. Doesn't have to be us. I mean, this isn't call us, even though if you want us to check it out, we will. But just find a professional, reputable team and have them come in and do it for you. A good, reputable team obviously will not charge. So you're not technically out anything, except you're going to get probably a pretty good answer to your question without doing it yourself. Rule number 3, do not whisper, hum, sing, mumble, or do voice impressions during an investigation. And if you do, take yourself. Happens all the time. I still do it. I've been in it like 9 years. I still do it. I like to think out loud, especially when I'm setting up equipment, to keep my train of thought and not get distracted. Newbies do it. Rookies do it all the time. Anytime I have a small event or whatever, you're going to have people whisper. They're not doing it intentional. It's just natural. It's a natural thing that we do. Sam, who is one of the investigators on my team, we've recently found out he likes to change his voice, like during breaks and stuff like that. You can't do it. You have to have the willpower not to do it, because recorders, even if they're not even on that floor, will pick you up and it will sound completely different. And that's what we're looking for EVPs, only to find out you don't have a class A EVP. You have your investigator trying to be funny. And obviously just take yourself. I mean, if you find yourself whispering, if you find yourself, doing a sing-songy voice, if you find yourself whispering or humming a song in your head, just say loudly, that was me. So, It's forgivable, although if you're investigating with me, I will call you out on it pretty much every time. So number 4, never invite a spirit to do anything to you. I made reference to that with the never investigate your own home rule. But this one, even for investigators, it's very, very important. And I'm talking about asking questions like, can you show yourself to me? Can you touch me? Use my energy. Things like that a lot of people do, especially on shows, where they invite the spirit to do something to them or use something that they have. And I'm not talking about equipment, but personally, physically on themselves. And what you do when you say stuff like that, and when you invite stuff like that, is you're inviting an attachment. You're also inviting it to do whatever it wants to you. I mean, if you say use my energy, you have pretty much just said, hey, grapple onto me. And if it wants to push you, shove you, scratch you, come home with you, whatever it wants to do, it'll do it because you gave it permission to do so. Permission is very, very important. So is intent. And so people, and I don't think a lot of people do it, but they need to be very cautious of what they are saying. Because if you don't reel it in, if you don't make it very, very specific, like I will say right now, right here, tonight, no other time, do this. Or can you do this, I should say. Always be respectful. Number 5, easy, never run. 1, you're a professional. You shouldn't be doing that anyway. 2, obviously safety. You're in the dark. You're always in the dark. But I think it just, beyond safety, it's just unprofessional. I mean, what is the homeowner, if they're there, going to do or think when they've called you in to help them and you're booking it out their front door? That to me is the difference between a ghost hunter and a paranormal investigator. Ghost hunters will run. They will take care of themselves first. They will, and even though I believe safety is very, very important, and I will send a investigator outside if they get compromised, but I'm not going to end the investigation. It is just not going to happen. Just don't run. And I mean that physically, and I also mean don't run away. Don't be scared. 80% of all investigating is how you control yourself and the things you say, your intent, all of that stuff. Number 6, do not provoke. That goes along the lines with, never invite a spirit to do anything to you. Very, very important. I get asked all the time, what is the best way for a spirit not to follow you home? My answer is always, don't be a dick. When I get to an investigation where there's a potential negative entity there, where there are stories from investigators that they have been attacked, they've been scratched, they've been pushed, my mentality going in is not, who's this evil bastard that's doing this? There's obviously something evil here. I need to treat it as such. But my question is, was it justified? I've always asked that question, especially at Edinburgh Manor in Iowa. Did you feel justified? I mean, because if you think about it, if somebody came into your home and started screaming obscenities at you, you'd probably kick the shit out of them too. Doesn't mean you're evil. It doesn't mean you're a demon. It means they deserved it. So that's very important to me. So just because somebody got scratched, just because somebody get pushed or their hair pulled or what, it doesn't necessarily mean that this entity is evil or negative. But just think, did this person deserve it? I mean, obviously, if they went in respectful and they tried to be that way and they weren't being assholes and something like that happened, well, then you might want to get a little angry, but still you can get challenging without provoking. And that's the most I've pretty much gotten in my field or in my career. Number 7, very, very important. Always speak up. I have had it many, many times where investigators have had something happening to them. They've felt dizzy, or they felt nauseated, or they felt compromised in some way, or they didn't feel right being in the location, but they didn't want to interrupt a session, or they didn't want to look like they were weak. And so they didn't say anything. And then bad things happened. Always speak up to your partner, to your team, even if you have to pull them to the side and say it privately to the team leader. Always speak up immediately. And if you feel compromised, get the hell out of there. There's nothing wrong with leaving a location, if only for a little while or for good, because it's not worth what could happen if you stay. And I would think any team and any investigator is going to completely understand that. Number 8, no piece of evidence is presented to a client unless it has been reviewed by other team members. Very, very important if you are a professional team. Obviously, if you're just a person going to events or you just love the paranormal, this one doesn't apply to you. But for teams and future investigators right now, make sure your team, and especially everybody that was at a certain location, hears and sees the evidence. Come to a team decision about what something says and what something is, and whether it should be thrown out or presented. I've had many, many fights with my team. I'm not always right. There have been a lot of times where I've come in, I think this EVP says this. 2 other people in my team hear something completely different. I go back and listen to it. Holy shit, they were right. I can completely hear what they were hearing. And it makes far more sense than what I heard. It happens. Just don't just assume that what you hear is actually what they're saying. EVPs are very subjective. So it needs multiple ears, multiple people to hear it and listen to it to make sure you have a correct piece of evidence. And lastly, number 9, any devices, meaning cell phones, tablets, really anything with a signal, must be turned off or in airplane mode during an investigation. The main reason for that is the signal. The signal will interfere with your equipment. It will make the K2 go off. It's not supposed to, but I think it will even make like the Rook go off. It's very, very easy for it to manipulate your equipment. So if you have your phone on and you're doing an EVP session, all of a sudden your K2 goes off and you're, oh my God, there's a spirit here. Look at what's happening. It hasn't done that in the last 10 minutes. You may be using your phone. Your phone may be working. The reason I say instead of off but on airplane mode is a lot of people use their phone camera to take pictures. And that's fine. That's not going to do anything. Except if you're using the flash, it's going to annoy the hell out of everybody there. I actually do have an EVP of a camera going off and like an EVP of a spirit going, ow, almost like you would, when something flashes in your eyes. So just make sure that you're aware of that. Everybody in your group in the building needs to have their phones either off, which is preferable, or in airplane mode. If one person has their phone on, you might as well throw out all of your EMF type stuff. It won't do it for everything, but it will do it for a lot. So just on the safe side, for your own goodwill, I guess you could say, leave it off. So those are our rules. Take and pick whichever ones you choose. None of those you don't want any of those. Have at it. But that is how the Odyssey Paranormal Society team conducts themselves. And beyond the whole mumbling and humming and stuff rule, we're very good at all of them. So Again, if you have any questions, any stories, any topics that you would like me to address, to read, to give my opinion on, go ahead and send those to odysseyfilesradio@gmail.com. And if you want to see any of our cases, the team, any of that stuff, odysseyparanormalsociety.com. Thank you for watching. I'll be back with another one. And stay healthy, stay safe.